Most Coloradans believe that providing our children with a quality education is an essential investment in our state's future. It is an investment that honors our children's role as future leaders, business owners, employees, voters, and parents. Unfortunately, Colorado ranks in the bottom quarter of states when it comes to school funding. But what does that really mean to Colorado schools and students? Is this a local problem or a statewide problem? And how are local schools coping with funding shortfalls? The Colorado School Stories Project seeks to answer these questions through the voices of the people most directly affected, educators and parents. The project holds a mirror up to our state, giving us the opportunity to judge for ourselves how well Colorado is providing for its schools.
Colorado spends $971 per student below the national average.
We've had to make some tough choices about how we maintain our buildings, how often we replace our textbooks. We replaced our science textbooks this last year, just to give you an example. The last time we did a district-wide adoption of science textbooks prior to last year was 24 years before that.
I've been involved in the volunteer side of it, trying to help come up with fundraising events and come up with ways to help with the school budgets that keep getting cut. And what I've seen happen is the parents, instead of being able to go to like activities or be involved in PTO or go to meetings and focus on what's really going on in the schools to better the education for their kids, they end up focusing more on how are they going to raise money, who's going to organize the next fundraiser.
This year, as a member of the Social Studies Department, we're going to have to figure out what fundraising efforts we're going to do because we don't have the budget now to pay for just the basic core needs that we need. And so those butter braids that you're buying from the choir department, we're going to have to ask you to save a few dollars to buy them from us in the history departments to pay for history textbooks and the supplies that we need. Because
Annual per pupil spending of our neighbors.
When I came to Colorado as a new superintendent, and I've just completed 1 year. So I find children that are much like the children I had before, but they're funded at even less. Here I fought for new funding in Kansas, and what I found is in Colorado, the funding is $1,000 less per student than I had when I was fighting for more funding in Kansas.
I think our last music program was at Christmas in about 1999, and we haven't had a band teacher or program. That was cut years ago. We maintain half of an art program now because our art teacher teaches social studies and humanities and has had to take over other things. So our art program's not dead, but pretty much cut down to where it's barely viable, and the music program's been long gone.
Adequate funding probably impacts us the biggest with the class sizes, with all the different things we need to deal with. We have kids coming with lots of different needs, lots of different experiences, and we're trying to work individually with the kids and bring their achievement to state expectations, and we think that's important, but we don't have the time to work individually with kids. Our class sizes are frankly just too big. When we have fifth grade classrooms of 35 kids, a teacher needs to deal with the parents of each of the children, they need to deal with the children and where their learning is in several different subject areas, and they're struggling with that.
Colorado ranks 44th in percentage of taxable income spent on K-12 schools.
At my school, we have a risograph because it's more effective, it's more cost effective. And so you make your copy just like an old ditto machine, pretty much, and it goes through one side, then you flip it over, and then you go through the other side, then you set that aside, and then you continue doing that for all your pages. And then after that, then you put all your things together, and then you staple them, and you collate them, and you do it all yourself, and it takes about an hour to make 100 copies for the kids. And that's an hour that I'm not planning. That's an hour that I'm not grading student work. That's an hour that I'm not looking at how I can differentiate my classrooms to best meet their needs. That's an hour that I'm doing copying.
We've had to cut back, the budget on textbooks. Educational materials we're losing those kinds of things so that we can buy gasoline.
We have one furnace now that is not working. It's shut down. And in that science lab room, we now have been forced to plug in electric baseboard kind of heaters for a large space, which is costing then again, of course, a lot of money to do that, while we sort of tread water and try to figure out how to get a furnace into that building and to other buildings.
But whenever you're talking about class size and protecting class size, there's a cost attendant with that when you're faced with a declining enrollment situation, because at the end of the day, you have to cut so many millions of dollars out of the budget, and there's nothing left that you don't consider absolutely necessary. And therefore, you make very, very hard choices that are painful and that will negatively affect some number of students.
Colorado ranks 44th in technology in our schools.
And one of the concerns that came forward was our chemistry lab. Our chemistry teachers would like to have a lab to teach chemistry, and I'd like to take a legislature down there to stand in that lab for 10 minutes and see if they're feeling well when they walk out of there. Your mouth thickens with something, and your eyes are burning, and right now, the board and myself don't feel that it is a safe place to put children in.
2 years or 3 years ago, when we reduced staff, we essentially eliminated our computer program at the high school. We had no computer classes other than I think we had one very basic class, and then we had the computers in the business departments and that sort of thing. But as far as programming and things, we just eliminated that position.
When you're in a classroom and you have 2 computers trying to teach literacy and teach research and have the kids do research on specific topics of their choice, and then they have to do reports. It's hard to rotate that many kids through 2 computers.
Colorado ranks 49th in spending for teacher salaries and benefits based on our taxable income.
You know, when we take a look at payroll and what we can afford to pay people, our top end of the salary schedule is someone who's been working 30 years makes $40,000, and I think that's an insult. I think that's an insult to someone with all this training and all this dedication. That's where they are topping out. As a matter of fact, we have people who drive trucks for the oil companies in our county who make about 20% more than that teacher who has been there 30 years.
The fact of the matter is, teachers, if they have a family, and not just first-year teachers, but teachers who've been there, a few years, if they're married and have kids, they qualify often for reduced lunch.
A lot of our students that I talk with, I said, well, what are you going to do when you get out of college? Most of them are talking about professional degrees, but very few of them are talking about certified teachers. And I asked them why, and they said because they don't pay well enough. And so the perception is out there among the students that are gifted and have a lot of resources to bring back into the community are saying, I don't want to come back as a teacher because you're not paying well enough.
We have interviewed over 160 educators and parents, from large urban schools to small schools on the prairie and in the mountains. Some of the details vary, but the root problem is the same. Our state does not adequately support its public schools. You can help make the story complete. Please tell your community about the Colorado School Stories Project by visiting www.greateducation.org and help Great Education Colorado to continue to grow its network of public school advocates.
Can't imagine any more important public investment than education. I mean, other things are important, but in this economy and in this democracy, there's nothing that's going to make a greater difference, and there's nothing that's going to have a higher return on investment for our tax dollars than education.
The Colorado School Stories Project is a joint effort of Children's Voices, the Colorado School Finance Project, and Great Education Colorado.